Hello, welcome back. Today I will be talking about the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Center. I'll be talking about the Atlantis Shuttle launch experience in the Atlantis West Pavilion, and the Apollo Saturn V Center, the Rocket Garden, and some of the other unique features. The Rocket Garden is one of the first areas that you see as you enter the Visitors Center. It contains many launch vehicles. These include Mercury Redstone, Mercury Atlas, Gemini on a Titan, and a Saturn 1B laying on the side towards the back. One of the things I recommend is getting to the Visitor Center early morning to make the best use of your time, and also while there's somewhat cooler air than in the afternoon. I also recommend taking the bus to the Apollo Saturn complex building as soon as possible early in the morning, because that's the furthest leg out, and it can take some time to look through the Apollo Saturn complex, especially if you're a first-time visitor. The bus depot to get to the Apollo Saturn building is right near the Atlantis building, so it's fairly straightforward to find. Half the bus depot is to get on the bus, and the other half is to get off the bus when you come back. The bus ride only takes a few minutes to get to the Apollo Saturn building. Along the way, you will see the world famous vehicle assembly building, which was initially built to house 4 Saturn V rockets at once, but I think throughout the history of the Saturn program it only held 1 rocket at any one time. Once you arrive at the Apollo Saturn V Center, as you walk in, you're greeted with the Saturn V laying on its side. You'll see the first stage, second, third stage of the Saturn vehicle, and then the Apollo sections towards the very other side of the building. The first stage of the Saturn V, you'll notice 5 massive F1 engines combined produced over 7.5 million pounds of thrust. The first stage burned a combination of liquid oxygen, LOX, and RP1 as the fuel. First stage burned for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's amazing to think that all that fuel and oxidizer went through those 5 engines in just 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The second stage, powered by 5 Rocketdyne J2 engines, which burn a combination of liquid oxygen, LOX, and hydrogen. The second stage burned for just a little bit more than 6 minutes, which put the vehicle into Earth orbit at about 17,500 miles per hour, or 5 miles per second. We are at the third stage of the Saturn V rocket, which has a single Rocketdyne J2 engine, also burning a combination of LOX and hydrogen. This stage would propel the Apollo component to the moon. It's basically a giant fuel tank, and the sole purpose was to get the command module, service module, and the lunar module headed towards the moon. In later missions of Apollo, NASA found another use for the third stage. Sometimes they would crash it into the moon on purpose to create a moonquake. Now we arrive at the top of the Saturn V structure. This part is called Apollo. It housed the command module, service module, and the lunar module. Command module, which is a capsule, is the only part of the entire mission that came back with the 3 astronauts. Everything else was discarded along the way. In 2019, in preparations for Apollo 11's 50th anniversary, Lunar Module 9, pictured here, was lowered from the ceiling, where it was hung for 20 years, to the floor, and then it was given a very nice place depicting as if it's actually on the moon. Also shows 2 astronauts as if they're walking on the moon, and around the outside of the circle of the display there are stands holding the front page of newspapers depicting what each newspaper said in different languages. Looks like the Apollo capsule is flying over the lunar module like it would have on the moon. Looks pretty cool. Here are all the places the Apollo astronauts landed on the moon. A room off to the side near the front of the vehicle where the lunar module is located has many Apollo artifacts. This is one of them, a mock-up of 3 astronauts sitting in the Apollo capsule. This picture shows the Apollo 14 capsule with all of the heat scarring from re-entry. This is the astronaut RV, as I call it. Sits at the very end of the Apollo building. Alright, this is the Moon Rock Cafe. As you expected, it's regular fried food, nothing out of this world, but you know, it'll get you by in a pinch. Outside is a memorial to Apollo 11 and the 3 astronauts. It's a wonderful place to get some pictures and definitely have a look. This is one of the many videos throughout the complex that talks about the incredible talent that it took to make Apollo Saturn possible. This lunar rover was designed to drive on Earth as a training vehicle for the Apollo astronauts. Notice the regular street or off-road tires on the vehicle. This is a pull-behind trailer for Apollo 14. This lunar rover is equipped with moon-only tires. If it was driven on Earth, those tires would collapse. An up close of the lunar rover's control panel. A model of the Saturn V lays next to its larger full-size twin. It shows the cutout view of all of the internals, so it's much easier to take a look and understand the rocket. So this is one of the first digital computers. It worked with nouns and verbs. There was one on the command module capsule and one in the lunar module. So before seeing the Space Shuttle Atlantis, there is something called the Atlantis experience, which documents the development of the Space Shuttle and goes through various prototypes, drawings, up until the launch of the actual shuttle. This concept shows the use of a Saturn V first stage with the Space Shuttle as the second stage. A number of ideas of having the Space Shuttle powered while flying in atmosphere. Finally, the concept that was actually built, the shuttle as we know it. Entering the shuttle exhibit, you'll notice the Space Shuttle Atlantis suspended from the ceiling with the screen in the background showing Earth as if it's still in orbit. A beautiful sight to see. The Space Shuttle Atlantis, still wearing its re-entry scars, looks incredible as it's hanging from the ceiling. It's really such a unique sight to see, and I think it's one of the best displays of anything I've seen in a museum. Up close of the front of the space shuttle, you can see the upper deck, the reaction control engines on one side in the front, and the entry door or the emergency escape door. This is a slow pan of Shuttle Atlantis. This is such a large vehicle that it doesn't do it justice in pictures or video. You really have to see it in person. The cargo bay is so large, you could literally put a house in it. The inside of the cargo bay doors are radiators, and they were used to dissipate the heat from the various equipment the shuttle carried on board. In this picture in the center, that circular tube in the middle is the ISS docking port for the space shuttle and the space station. That is how cargo and astronauts transferred to and from the space station. So in this picture, you begin to see the Canadarm connected to this space shuttle. It was extended with extra sections after the Columbia accident so that the Canadarm could move a camera all around the space shuttle for examination before coming back to Earth. The vertical fin houses the shuttle's air brake rudders, which fold out in two separate directions to slow the vehicle down upon landing. Rudders. This is the aft section of the shuttle, housing the orbital maneuvering engines, plus more reaction control engines. The three large cones represent the three main engines of the shuttle. This vehicle does not have the main engines included. The engines are put aside for the SLS program. The shuttle's body flap is visible in this picture at the bottom, along with the three cones for the engines. This diagram depicts many of the shuttle's systems and features. There is so much more to see at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center. So make some time and plan a trip because it's a great experience to learn history and also learn about what might be coming up in the near future. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe.